Stanley people, how are you doing? And welcome to the League One summer transfer window review. Today we are going to be going over all of the business that has happened in the summer transfer window. It's fair to say it's been a very busy and entertaining transfer window in League One. So we'll go through the teams in alphabetical order, starting off with Accrington Stanley. Now, Accrington have actually intrigued me during this transfer window, as they seem to have got in a lot of youngsters from loan from the Championship and the Premier League, one of which being Ryan Cassidy on loan from Watford, and he's actually had an okay start to the season. 3 goals and 2 assists in all competitions so far. He has had quite an impressive season, and the same can also be said for Tariq Uwakwe, coming in from Chelsea on a season-long loan, and he has been absolutely fantastic for them so far. Kind of like a midfielder, but I think has been utilised in the left wing-back position, which is interesting. But he himself has bagged 4 goals and 1 assist in all competitions, in particular the goal he scored on the opening day against Peterborough, which was an absolutely fantastic strike. Signed some other youngsters from the Championship and the Premier League. They've signed 2 players from Newcastle, Tom Allen and Mo Sangare, as well as a couple more players from Chelsea, John Russell and Nathan Baxter. In terms of their outgoings, Alfrende Zanzala heading to Crewe Alexandra, he bagged 8 goals for them last season. Jordan Clark heading to the Championship, signing for Luton Town. He was very good for them last season and certainly will be a loss for them. And Sam Finley, the midfielder, is off to Fleetwood Town. But it's an interesting transfer window for Accrington, bringing in youngsters, and some of them have actually performed quite well. Moving on to AFC Wimbledon, and once again they've also been quite active in the transfer window. They've signed some pretty interesting players. A couple of players coming over from non-league: Crewe Alexandra, Ethan Chislett, Alex Woodyard coming over from Peterborough, Ollie Palmer from Crawley. He was Crawley's top scorer last year, never played above League One before, and he's come into League One to try and get them the goals that Marcus Fors did last year when he come on loan to Brentford. He scored 11 goals for them last season. They've also brought in another youngster from Brighton and Hove Albion called Ryan Longman. I think he's a winger, right-sided winger. He's bagged 2 goals and 1 assist for them in the league so far, so he too has been pretty good. And in terms of their outgoings, they've just got rid of some players, like some experienced players that just haven't really put to good use. Mitch Pinnock heading off to Kilmarnock, Rod McDonald moving to Carlisle, I believe, and Scott Wagstaff heading to Forest Green. So they've got rid of some aging experience and they've brought in some youth and some exciting players. Next up, we have the team that made the most signings during the transfer window, that being Blackpool. I'm astonished, to be totally honest, is the amount of players they've brought in. Among those is an abundance of midfielders. You know, you've got Keshi Anderson, Oliver Sarkic, CJ Hamilton, the winger from Mansfield, who was fantastic for them in League 2. He's come over. Berele Labala from Crawley, formerly of Birmingham City. And of course Kenny Dougal as well, who was training with my club Charlton during the off-season, and they've got him on a free transfer. Wojciech and Mitchell both coming over from Manchester United. Luke Garbutt, who was superb for Ipswich last season, and he's done very well the last couple of seasons in League One. He's come over on a permanent transfer as well. In terms of their outgoings, again, like Wimbledon, they seem to have got rid of their age and experience. Some experienced players in there, you know, Jay Spearin is off to Tranmere, Nathan Delfonso off to Bolton, Sean Scannell to Grimsby, Liam Feeney heading out on loan to Tranmere, I believe. 14 assists for them last season, and he's gone out on loan. So that shows that the club do have confidence in the midfielders that they've got, and not to mention the midfielders they already have, you know, Grant Ward, Soleil Kaikai. They've got an abundance of midfielders in there, and it is surprising that they've started the season as badly as they have, but you know, I've been really impressed with the amount of signings they've brought in this season. Moving on to Bristol Rovers, the signings they have made, you got Josh Grant coming over from Chelsea on a permanent. He was with Plymouth last season. They've brought in some experience in the back line with Jack Baldwin and Max Elner coming over. Sam Nicholson coming over from the MLS, again a winger. Zane Westbrook coming over from Coventry, as well as Brandon Hanlon coming over from Gillingham. I think he is a striker that is more than capable of scoring at this level. He's already got 2 for Bristol Rovers already this season, and he has come in as the replacement for their star man Johnson Clark-Harris, who of course departed signing for Peterborough, and they brought in Hanlon to replace him. I don't think Hanlon is on the same level as Clark-Harris yet. Hanlon is still quite young. And another interesting signing for them is the signing of Erhanus Tuma from my club Charlton on a season-long loan. Now, it was a signing that I didn't see coming, but it was a signing that made sense because Ozzy never really worked out for Charlton. He had that one unbelievable performance against Nottingham Forest in the first half. He literally lived up to his nickname, the Turkish Messi, but unfortunately he never really lived up to that reputation. He's only got 1 goal and 1 assist in his time with Charlton. In terms of their other departures, Ollie Clark and Rollin Mayonnaise have completed a permanent transfer to Mansfield Town, where their previous manager is at. Liam Sercombe is also gone as well. He's gone to Cheltenham. Burton Albion's up next, and they've had quite an interesting window as well. They've not really let all that many players go, and they've signed some interesting players. Stephen Lawless coming over from Livingston, a very pacey Scottish winger. Neil Eardley and Michael Boswick, two very experienced players coming over from Lincoln City. That will give them a sense of leadership in the backline. Kane Hemmings coming over from Dundee. He bagged 10 goals and 2 assists in the Scottish Championship in 25 games for Dundee last year. And he's come back to England now, and he's already got a goal and an assist. So again, could be pretty decent. And they have brought in another striker in the name of Niall Ennis. Now, of course, he was on loan in League One last year with Doncaster Rovers and had a relatively okay season. 6 goals and 3 assists for Doncaster last season. In terms of their departures, they've lost arguably 2 of their best midfielders in Oliver Sarkic and Scott Fraser. Sarkic, a very technically gifted player. He got 4 goals and 8 assists in all competitions for them last year. He's gone to Blackpool, and the other player being Scott Fraser, and he was absolutely fantastic. 5 goals and 11 assists for them last season. He's gone to Milton Keynes Dons and has already started strong for them. And moving on to my club, Charlton Athletic, and we've actually had an overall very successful transfer window. Alex Gilby, Connor Washington, of course, coming in at the start of the window. Washington currently our top scorer, which is an achievement because he's bagged 2 of our 4 goals that we've scored in the league this season, so not exactly an achievement. Dylan Levitt coming over from Manchester United, of course, very highly rated by United. I think he's been slightly overhyped, though. I don't really... I mean, I can see glimpses of his quality. I mean, his vision can be fantastic, but I don't think he is... I wouldn't go as far as saying he's the best passer at Man United, like Man U would describe. Ben Watson coming over from Nottingham Forest, of course, a very experienced midfielder. He's played a couple of times for us already. He's been okay so far, could be a bit better. Akin Famowo, been very impressive him so far. 6'3" centre-back coming over from Norwich City. On paper, our best signing of the window is, of course, Marcus Maddison coming over from Peterborough. A very fantastic signing. His track record with Peterborough was absolutely phenomenal. Unfortunately, he does have a minor ankle injury right now, which is just typical Charlton. Chris Gunter coming in from Reading, fantastic addition. We needed the right back badly. And then you've also got Omar Bogle from his performance against Wigan yesterday. When he came off the bench, he did look very good. Ryan Innes and Ian Martson as well, Premier League defenders. Innes on a permanent absolute brute force at the back. Martson, looking forward to seeing him play. I think he's going to be a spitting image of Jada Silva. And then, of course, our deadline day signings, Andrew Shinney and Paul Smith. Now, of course, Shinney, he also played against Wigan. Didn't really see all too much of him, but obviously it was his first game, so I let him off. Smith, I had my doubts about. He actually impressed me coming into that first game against Wigan. He was darting forward about the place. In terms of our outgoings, of course, we had a couple players leave after their release from the Championship. Lyle Taylor, of course, being the notable one, going to Nottingham Forest. Tom Lockyer to Luton. Naby Sarr to Huddersfield. Page to Exeter, which annoys me because he just kept breaking down with injury, and then he goes and gets Player of the Month for Exeter, and he's getting consistent game time there, which is just... It's just typical, isn't it? Macaulay Bonne heading to QPR for a whopping £2 million. We've absolutely ripped off QPR there. George Lapsley heading off on loan to Mansfield, got himself sent off. And then Dylan Phillips heading to Cardiff as well. He finally got his move. Of course, he didn't want to be here. He wanted to move away. Phillips was by far one of the best keepers in the Championship last season, so I really do hope that Cardiff utilise him. Next up, we have the team that made the joint least amount of signings in the transfer window, that being newly promoted Crewe Alexandra. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it just shows that they have the confidence in their current squad. But I must admit, the 5 signings they have made in this window have actually impressed me. Michael Mandron has already been firing at all cylinders for them. 5 goals in 7 games for them, so he has been absolutely prolific for them already. Donovan Daniels coming over from Luton Town, a very physical defender, could be a unit in the backline. Luke Murphy, some experience, coming over from Bolton, and also Omar Beckles coming over from Shrewsbury. I remember him so vividly of Shrewsbury's playoff season 2017-18 when they made the playoff final. Beckles was an absolute nuisance in the backline. He was an absolute brute. Doncaster Rovers is up next. Now, these guys adopted quite a late transfer strategy. That's how I would interpret it anyway. They didn't sign all too many at the start of the window, but they have pulled some absolute worldies out of the bag. They've got some really technically gifted players in that side. Jason Lakilo, of course, was on loan with Crystal Palace last season. That's now become a permanent. The guy is something special. He's absolutely fantastic. Josip Bursic coming over from Stoke as well, a decent keeper. Then you've got the likes of Taylor Richards, Tyrese John Jules, who would have signed for Charlton had the embargo not gotten our way. Rayan Tulloch from West Bromwich Albion. And Matt Smith from Manchester City, which is rather interesting, of course. He was with Charlton in the Championship last year, and what was it? He only got 2 appearances off the bench. He barely played for us. And the same with QPR as well. I hope that Doncaster do utilise him this season, because I think that there is a player there, but he does come in as an unknown identity. So we need to find, it's a case of trying to find that player. And I think that there is one in there. Their biggest departure by far was Kieran Sadlier, who of course has ended up at Rotherham United. 11 goals and 6 assists in League One last year. Certainly a big loss, but with the amount of creative players they've brought into that side and with the way that they're playing at the moment, I don't think they'll be all too bothered by it. Joey Barton's Fleetwood Town have also been very busy during the transfer window, brought in a lot of players. Callum Camps coming over from Rochdale. I think he should have left Rochdale absolutely ages ago, and he too has been fantastic for them this season, grabbing a bunch of goals and assists for them already. Jordan Rossiter was on loan with them with Rangers last season. He's now come over on a permanent. Coleman, the goalkeeper, coming over from Huddersfield, signed a new keeper to compete with Alex Cairns, and then he goes and gets injured for 6 months, so they've had to bring in another goalkeeper this transfer window, with that being Jason Lutweiler, the Canadian coming over from Blackburn Rovers. Harry Mackay coming back on loan. He of course joined the club in January from Swansea. He's now come back on a season-long loan. Mark Duffy, very experienced player. He's been fantastic for them as well. They didn't get Harry Suter this transfer window. However, they did get Charlie Mulgrew, another Blackburn Rovers player, as the centre-half. Very, very experienced player. Very decent free kick on him as well. He was with Wigan on loan last season, and he is going to be an absolute rock, an absolute enforcer in the backline for them this season. It's a shame they didn't quite get Suter, but you know, Mulgrew, I think he's going to be a very, very impressive player. In terms of their departures, they seem to have got rid of some of their deadwood players. You know, Carl Dempsey's off, you know, Ashley Hunter going to Salford on a permanent. Biggest loss was probably Louis Coyle, who was signed for Hull City. But all in all, I think Fleetwood have really strengthened their team this season. They've brought in a lot of quality midfielders and adding to the players that they've managed to keep. Paddy Madden, fantastic League One striker. Ched Evans, quality alongside him. Moving on to the team that made the second most amount of signings this transfer window, and another team that has really impressed me so far this season, is Gillingham. Under the management of Steve Evans, they have brought in a ridiculous amount of players. Ryan Jackson making his return to the club. Verdane Oliver coming over from Northampton. He scored 8 goals for them last season in League 2. Then you got 2 young Arsenal players, Zech Medley and Trey Coyle. Jordan Graham coming in on a permanent transfer from Wolves. He was on loan with them last season. He made that a permanent deal now, and he's been superb for them so far. 4 goals and 1 assist for them already. He really has been one of the more prolific players in the league this season. They have signed Dominic Samuel, who has made his return to the club, and he too has had a pretty impressive return as well. 2 goals in 4 appearances, although those 2 goals did come on his debut, so he hasn't scored since then. But I think that he was pretty wasted when he was with Blackburn, and I really do think he's going to have an impressive season for them, and I think that he could be a very good replacement for Hanlon. In terms of their departures, they've just got rid of players that just didn't really work. You know, Regan Charles Cook heading to Ross County. Cisse, who was on loan at Leyton Orient, has gone there on a permanent. Max Elmer, as I mentioned earlier, going to Bristol Rovers. Mandron going to Crewe, as I mentioned. Ben Pringle has gone down to Morecambe, I believe, in League 2. Hull City. Now, no one really knew what to expect from Hull this season. We didn't really know what was going on, because we knew that you know, they've just come down from the Championship. They've got a massive rebuilding task ahead of them. Were they going to be mid-table? Were they going to be fighting? And it's clear they're going for promotion straight away. Wilkes is going to be absolutely massive for Hull City this season. He's already got himself 5 goals for them. He is absolutely crucial to their season. I will not be surprised at all if some Championship clubs come in for him. Josh Emmanuel coming over from Bolton Wanderers. I had my doubts about him. I didn't think he was going to be very good, considering he played for a team that was an absolute mess last year. But he too has proved quite well for them. Very physical fullback. Richie Smallwood coming over from Blackburn. The player that got the most hype from the Hull fans was Greg Doherty. Now, I didn't really know all too much about him when they signed him. He does have a very good track record at League One with his time at Shrewsbury Town. 7 goals and 8 assists in 41 games for them in the 2018-19 season. It shows he has the ability for this league. It shows that he can do it at this level, and I can see why Hull fans were so hyped about him coming over. Ryan Tafazoli heading to Wycombe in the Championship, which was a surprise, because I don't think that he's anywhere near a championship player, but then again, it is Wycombe, so it's pretty much the same thing as League One. But Leonardo da Silva Lopez, who has gone to Belgium. Now we have the other club that has the joint least amount of transfers this summer, that being Ipswich Town. The squad did finish 11th in League One last season, but they did have a very impressive start to the season. A start that they have repeated this year. They're currently top of the league, and they play in some fantastic football, and some of the signings in there, Stephen Ward, of course, very experienced fullback. Keenan Bennett is an interesting one, of course, coming over from Borussia Mönchengladbach. Some of the players have already got, Alan Judge, Gwyn Edwards has been fantastic for them already. John Nolan, they've got some very good players in there, and I think that they are going to have a very, very decent season. And their only departure being Idris El Mazouni going over to Cambridge on loan. But they've started the season fantastically. Moving on to Lincoln City. These guys have established themselves as a promotion contending team at the start of the season, and they've brought in some very interesting players. Lewis Motsma, a goal-scoring centre-half. I think he's got 4 goals for them already this season. He's been absolutely superb for them. Kind of reminds me of Patrick Bauer when he played for us in League One. A centre-half that scores you goals. Liam Bridcut coming over on a permanent transfer. Superb signing. Timothy Ayoma, a player who has really impressed me so far this season. A centre-half coming over from Tottenham. He's been played in the right-back position, and he has absolutely bossed attacks this season. He looks so physical, so dominant, and so calm and collective. There's some other youngsters coming in on loan. Callum Morton and Alex Palmer coming in to West Bromwich Albion. Brennan Johnson coming over from Nottingham Forest. And of course, Robbie Gotts coming over from Leeds. Charlton were interested in him. Jack Payne, who's been moved all about the place in League One over the years. He's gone to Swindon Town, but it is a very good League One player. And as I mentioned earlier, 2 experienced players, Neil Eardley and Michael Bostwick, both heading to Burton Albion. Next up, we have Milton Keynes Dons. Now, it is fair to say that they've had quite an interesting transfer window this summer. They've lost more players than they have signed players. Holton Morris has returned on loan from Norwich City, as has Lewis Thompson. Morris is a proven scorer at this level, and we saw that with his time at Shrewsbury Town. Obviously, was a very prolific scorer there. Scott Fraser, as I mentioned earlier, he was superb for Burton Albion last season. They've now got him. I think that's an excellent addition. He's already done wonders for them this season so far. 2 experienced players, Richard Keogh and Cameron Jerome. Of course, Richard Keogh, we all know him from Derby County. I think he's really going to solidify that backline. And then Jerome, which I must admit I was very surprised when they signed him, because we all know him from his time at Norwich City. The notable departures that I can see in there, Alex Gilby of course being one of them. He was their 2-time player of the year. He of course has come to Charlton and he's already shown his quality as well. Callum Britton going to Barnsley, and probably the biggest departure, Reece Healey, their top scorer last season, heading to the French League, heading to Toulouse. He bagged 11 goals for them last season, so he will be a big miss. It's whether Cameron Jerome though, who is, let's face it, at the very prime of his career, can he replace him? Can he get the goals for them still at the age that he is? And the same with Colton Morris. Can he keep up his impressive goal scoring record at this level? Only time will tell. But newly promoted Northampton Town is up next again. They've been quite busy. They're looking to stamp their authority. They're looking to solidify their position in League One this season. Hasn't exactly worked out for them so far, with them currently sitting in the bottom 4. But they have brought in a couple of players. Benny Ashley Seal being one of them already. He's got 2 goals for them so far this season, albeit they did come in the EFL trophy. But he's obviously a young lad who was on loan at Accrington Stanley. Didn't do all too much from them, but he has completed a permanent move to them from Wolves. It could be a breakthrough season for him this time round. I think that Verdane Oliver will be quite a miss for them. 8 goals last season. I think with the signings of Ashley Seal, who is unproven, let's face it, at this level, because he didn't really do too much with Accrington last year, and then Joe Nuttall, who didn't exactly have the greatest of seasons in terms of statistics with Blackpool, but I think could be decent for them. Northampton's notable departure being, of course, Charlie Good, their star centre-back last year, of course, heading to Brentford. They have replaced him with a Brentford centre-half called Luka Rasic, the Danish centre-back coming in on loan from the London side, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on as Good's replacement. Now we have Oxford United, and I have absolutely no idea what's happened to these guys this season. They are rock bottom of the table, which is embarrassing because I predicted these guys to win the league. Matty Taylor completing a permanent move over from Bristol City, of course, was on loan with them last year. He was absolutely fantastic, one of League One's prolific scorers. They've re-signed Liam Kelly on loan from Feyenoord, again another decent midfielder who has the ability at this level. Sam Winnall, who was heavily linked with Charlton as well, the Sheffield Wednesday striker coming in to Oxford. He will provide competition or potentially a decent strike partnership with Taylor. But a player that I am interested in seeing this season for them is Olamide Shodipo, who they completed a deadline day loan move for from QPR. Very technically gifted player with a lot of pace, and I think he fits in to that style of play, with the pacey wingers that Robinson used to have or has had at Oxford United. Of course, Tariq Fosu was a notable example of that. Rob Dickey, their star centre-half, heading to QPR. But Dickey, I think he will be quite a loss in the back line for them, and to be honest, so far this season, it's proved that's been proven with their league position. But I don't think they'll be anywhere near the bottom of the table by the end of the season. Peterborough United, they're starting to kick on now. They had quite a slow start over the last couple of games, but they're starting to improve their form a little bit. And once again, they've signed some pretty damn good midfielders this season. Ethan Hamilton, who of course was on loan with Bolton last year, has completed a permanent move over from Manchester United, so I'm looking forward to seeing him play. Reece Brown, of course, has come back on loan from Huddersfield Town. He, of course, was with them on loan last year, but of course was cut short due to the COVID pandemic, so he's now come back. Ryan Broom, one of Cheltenham's best players. Johnson Clark-Harris, as I mentioned earlier, superb striker for Bristol Rovers last season. 15 goals, I think it was, for him last year. The one we all saw come in, Ivan Toney. He was never going to stay. League One top scorer last year, 26 goals. He, of course, has gone to Brentford and he's finally started to find his feet there. But there was absolutely no way he was going to stay. George Cooper has gone to Plymouth and he has started off quite well for them as well. And then, of course, Marcus Maddison, released by Peterborough after it was confirmed that he would not have his contract renewed. Newly promoted Plymouth Argyle, they've strengthened quite a lot this transfer window. They've got a lot of players in and not that many out. They've signed a couple of players from League Two, Frank Nouble from Colchester, Panuche Kamara from Crawley. Ben Reeves, the former Charlton player, has come over to the midfield. I did like Reeves when he played for Charlton. I mean, he was one of them players that was just constantly working. Another interesting player they've brought in is Fulham's Timmy Abraham. Of course, Charlton were reportedly linked with him as well during the transfer window, but it's Plymouth that have got him. He was with Bristol Rovers last season, so he's an unproven talent that could do well for them this season. In terms of their departures, Anthony Sarcevic, their best player last season, of course their top scorer, has gone to Bolton for family reasons. Portsmouth, Kenny Jackett's side, it's safe to say they've had quite a disappointing and underwhelming transfer window. Sean Raggett coming over on a permanent from Norwich. Cameron Pring coming in on a loan from Bristol City. He was with Walsall last season. He's now stepped up a division. Michael Jacobs, the experienced winger, coming over from Wigan. I think he could be decent for them to partner the likes of Ronan Curtis, Marcus Harness. Brandon Hornstrup going to Kilmarnock. Ollie Hawkins, as I mentioned earlier, heading to Ipswich. I think some Portsmouth fans were a little bit disappointed that he had left. Brett Pittman, obviously, over the years has got a decent track record in League One, and when it comes to scoring goals, he's gone to Shrewsbury Town. And then Gareth Evans has gone to Bradford City, which I must admit was quite a surprise. They seem to have kicked on a little bit now. They're starting to improve their results. They're starting to climb up the table a little bit. Marcus Harness has been absolutely superb. The 2 goals he scored at Burton over the couple of weeks ago was just breathtaking. Moving on to Rochdale, these guys again didn't do all too much business. They started the window quite slow. The players they have brought in Alex Newby, who they're taking a risk on, coming over from Chorley. 2 Manchester City youngsters, Gavin Bazunu, the goalkeeper, and Yeboah Amankwa, coming over from the Premier League Giants. Stephen Humphreys, although they've signed Humphreys, who yes can be good at this level, they did lose Ian Henderson, who of course was their top scorer, their best player arguably. He of course has gone to Salford City, and massive loss for Rochdale. And of course Callum Camps as well, who has also left the club, their best midfielder. Oh, I don't really know what to think. You know, they're taking a gamble on obviously Newby coming over from non-league, and of course Premier League youngsters. Humphreys I think is a good signing. Is he good enough to replace the goals of Henderson though, is the only question. Shrewsbury Town, they've been quite busy this transfer window as well. Marlon Fossey coming in from Fulham, a right back, an American right back who can play right wing back as well. Looking forward to seeing how he gets on. One of the more interesting signings this window this season though came from them, that being Leon Clark from Sheffield United, of course the experienced striker. I was quite surprised that he's come all the way down to League One, and I think that if he is used right, I think he could actually do well for Shrewsbury this season. Their notable departure being Josh Loren, who's gone to Reading in the Championship. He was fantastic for them last season. Sunderland is an interesting one because again they've brought in some players, of course they've brought in some much needed depth, but I feel like they could have done a little bit more. Aidan O'Brien from Millwall I think is a fantastic sign, and I was actually surprised that Millwall let him go. I think he's going to be really good for them this season. Bailey Wright, absolutely superb centre-back. Morgan Feeney and Arbonit Jemili, 2 centre-backs coming in from Everton and a team that I cannot pronounce the name of to save my life respectively. And also Dion Sanderson as well, coming in on loan from Wolves. He was with Cardiff in the Championship last season, of course a right-back who can play centre-half. Could be a decent signing for them, of course, a youngster. They've not lost all too many players either, but the players that they have lost are quite big ones. It has to be said, John McLaughlin, their goalkeeper, off to Rangers, of course, massive loss for them in between the sticks. Jack Baldwin never really worked out for him at Sunderland. He's gone to Bristol Rovers, as I mentioned. Barney Mumba, Sunderland fans mainly saw this coming. He's gone to Norwich in the Championship. Still don't rate Sunderland's attack force, to be honest. I don't rate it whatsoever. But hey-ho, they find themselves in the playoffs at the moment. They're playing quite well. Charlie White is actually scoring goals for them. He did score against Swindon over the weekend. Swindon Town, they've also kept quite busy this transfer window. Dearlang Jasimi, of course, the winger who was on loan with them at Norwich City last year. He's come back on a permanent deal. Scored 5 goals and 2 assists, I think it was, for them last year. So he done very well. Jack Payne, as I mentioned earlier, he's been moved all over the place in League One. He's been at Lincoln. He's come from Lincoln, of course. He was at Bradford. He's very good. He's a very good midfielder at this level, and I think he could be very, very decent. Mate Kovar from Manchester United on loan in goal could be decent for them. Brett Pittman, of course, has a good track record over the years in League One with goals scored. I think again could be good. And another interesting one, Jonathan Grounds, a left back coming over from Birmingham, a very experienced player. Again, could give them some much needed experience and solidity in the back line. In terms of their departures, I have spoke about this quite a lot on the channel with the departures of Keshi Anderson and Owen Doyle and how much I was saying a massive loss it was. Now, a lot of Swindon fans have been quick to tell me that Anderson made a lot of his appearances off the bench, so they've been saying not really the biggest loss in the world. He, of course, has gone to Blackpool, and Owen Doyle has stepped down a division, which still weirds me out to this day that he's gone to Bolton, gone down a division. He, of course, got 25 goals for them last season. He was absolutely superb for them. You know, Swindon fans were saying that Doyle was a bit of a poacher. It's a case of them needing to find a player that can do the same that Doyle did, that can get in the right place at the right time. Is Pittman the man to do it? Only time will tell. I think that with his track record, could be a decent replacement for Doyle. The final team we are going to be discussing is, of course, the newly relegated side, Wigan Athletic. Oh boy, there's a lot to discuss with this team. There's been a lot of ingoings and outgoings, of course, with what's happened with their club. Unfortunately, with the administration, they've had to sell a ridiculous amount of their players. When I saw them play yesterday, it was a completely different team, which was quite upsetting to see. But there are some players in there that they have been able to sign that are pretty decent. In particular, Viv Solomon Otterbourne, who I think is a very, very good winger. Of course, used to play for Birmingham and Blackpool. I think he was okay for them. He's got a bit of pace about him, a little bit of trickery. I think he could be a big player for them. Will Keane, I think he's a really good striker at this level. I think he could perform a decent partnership with Joe Garner. But I think their signing of the window is Curtis Tilts, coming on loan from Rotherham. An absolute unit in the background. A very, very good centre-back. In terms of their departures, strap yourselves in for this one, lads. The players that they have lost: Leon Balogun, Cameron Lang on loan, who I mentioned in a previous video. They may want to think about recalling. With the players they have lost: Daniel Guayoli, Joe Gerhard, Kiefer Moore, Che Dunkley, Lewis McLeod, Joe Williams, Anthony Robinson, David Marshall, Cedric Kipri, Jamal Lowe, Josh Windass, Nathan Byrne, Sam Morsey, Michael Jacobs. That is a ridiculous amount of players. 16 players in total gone, and that is just... It is upsetting to read with the amount of players they have lost, because it is just a completely different team from what it was last year. But, you know, I wish John Sheridan and his side all the best with this season. So that is it for the League One summer transfer window review. It's a bit of a long one because there's been so much business that's happened this window. Thanks for watching this video, guys. If you guys did enjoy it, can you possibly leave a like, subscribe if you're new around here, and turn on the post notifications so you're notified of when I post. We are so close to 2,600 subscribers. If we get to that, that'd be absolutely awesome. What do you guys think of your club's transfer window? Let me know in the comments below. I'm so looking forward to the rest of this season now. There's been some quality players in. This has been Tyler Rollinson. Have a nice day, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take it easy, guys, and I'll see you all later.